this is the first time I'm seeing where I was at last year, and it's so rewarding because I was fucked last year, and it was like I'm reading it in this journal. It's like, he watched Perks of Being a Wallflower again. He watched Perks of Being a Wallflower again. He's fucking eating ice cream in his he's like, you know what I mean?
My gosh.
And it's for me, it's really rewarding because I'm now starting to look at this just like massive leap I've made in a year,
which helps you trust yourself. Welcome to Please Excuse My OCD. Today is a very special day. I have one of my favorite people on earth here who goes by the name Shye as an artist. But those of us who are in his personal life, we know him as Nick. And Nick has been someone in my life who's very important to me. We've been very close for the past 3.5 years. We've been working together in music. And so I do a lot of producing for Nick, and Nick has done a lot of writing with me for some of my stuff that I've put out. And Nick is somebody who has a real good vibe about him because he understands OCD with himself, and he also has bipolar disorder. So he has seen the darkest of darkness with OCD and bipolar disorder. I thought he would be one of the best people to start off having on this podcast as one of my first interviewees, because is that a word? Interviewees, I think is the word. He's one of the first people that I wanted to interview here. One, because I love him so much, and two, because he has a lot of introspection that he's done. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this incredible conversation that I've had with Nick here. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man?
Just drinking my coffee, or how you New Yorkers say it, coffee.
Yeah. It's a fucking milkshake, but it's okay.
Nick always likes to make fun of my preference of coffee.
Because it's not coffee.
It's better than bean water. So, which is how Nick likes his coffee. Just strictly from the bean.
Your coffee, quote unquote, was pink, white, and orange. That's not fucking coffee.
They sold it to me really well, and I bought on. But, yeah, thank you for coming all the way out here.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. I think what you're doing is really cool and important, and I'm honored to be here. And I know I told you this earlier, but I'm also really grateful that you did a whole bit on your fixation on the word fuck, because you know I'm not going to be able to not curse on this. So that's very helpful for me.
Yeah, I was hoping that you'd be able to leave a few fucks here.
Yeah, I'm going to leave a couple 2-tree fucks.
Cool.
For sure.
Cool. Well, as you guys heard in the intro, Nick is an incredible advocate for mental health, and he does so in his music, his writing. He gave me a book that he wrote called "I'm Not Supposed to Be Here," and I'm probably like screwing up with the angle here, but and I read it this morning before he got here, and it was just Nick has a moving story. So I figured the best thing that we could do to kind of give the viewers and listeners a backstory on you is for you to tell your story with OCD, because you are creative, you're a writer, you're a musician, everything known to man that's creative, you have a hand in. So
I try. I'm not great at anything, but I'm okay at a lot of things.
Okay, yeah, well, that counts. And so I guess just like, I know your backstory, but tell me your backstory so that everyone can really understand your background with OCD and your connection to it.
Okay. So I was diagnosed OCD when I was 8, and diagnosed bipolar when I was 10. You know, at first it's the traditional things that people, you know, relate to with OCD, where it's like, oh, he can't stop washing his hands, or he can't stop licking his lips. And so his like mouth is raw, his hands are raw. And he's, you know, it's all the, you know, telltale signs, quote unquote, right, of OCD that people kind of think. And then, you know, got diagnosed bipolar when I was 10. And, you know, you and I have talked a lot about it, how they kind of play off each other, where I'll have a negative intrusive thought and it's made that much worse by my bipolar, and it kind of plays back and forth with each other. And I spent years trying to figure out, like the first few years of both diagnoses, trying to figure out the right combination of medicine. I can't tell you the medicines I've been, I have no idea. My mom has like a notebook or something at home. filled with all these medications that I've been on. And then when I was 13, it was like so out of control. The medication they had me on was not good for my brain chemistry. It was not the right combination, and also just did not have the tools or the right handle on any of it. Within a month, I almost got arrested. I was put into a mental hospital when I was 13. And it like completely changed my life. I both like learned a lot about myself and got the right combination of medicine and all that stuff while I was in there, but also was just so terrified of ever having to go back that was such a huge motivating factor. Like, I'm never fucking coming back to this place. And then, you know, kind of have this new lease on life. Not to say it's been sunshine and rainbows, because I mean,
Sure.
You've read it, clearly hasn't. But I guess as I've gotten older and into, you know, my adult years, I've started to focus on more things like the manic side of my bipolar. I had to spend a lot of time on, because that was really scary, and making decisions that are not in line with my beliefs. And I know you talk about that, like the intrusive thought on OCD is not. So it's like I'm having intrusive thoughts and mania at the same time, and trying to navigate that. And then, you know, with that comes like suicidal ideation and all these things. So it's been like it's been a journey for sure. And, you know, I think over the last year, especially, I've really kind of started to heal some things within me that are, you know, lifelong things that I've been trying to combat and learn, and I'm still trying to figure it out every day, especially on the OCD side of things. I feel like lately, you know, the last few years, that intrusive thought or that thing that I can't stop cycling over has become like really present in my life. So I've been trying to navigate that as well. But yeah, I guess that's the Spark Notes version.
The Spark Notes version. So can you tell me how bipolar and OCD kind of like walk hand in hand?
Yeah, it sucks. It's, you know, the intrusive thought is the big part of it. You know what I mean? It's something that you've talked a lot about on the podcast already, that there's that kind of doesn't get the light shined.
The light doesn't shine.
The light
on
doesn't
it.
shine on that. Yeah. Where it's like everyone's like, oh, he's a neat freak, or he's this. And yeah, there are those things where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna drive down the street from my apartment, and because I can't visualize the fact that I locked the door, even though I did, I'll turn around and just check. There are those things for sure. But the as far as the way bipolar and, you know, OCD walk hand in hand, it's interesting because it's, you know, bipolar is the extreme highs and the extreme lows. And then OCD is the obsession of those extreme highs and those extreme lows. So it's like, I'll have an intrusive, you know, not so much anymore. I've really kind of contained mania, thankfully. But like when I was younger, I would have an intrusive thought and be manic, which is, you know, mania is a form of psychosis. So when you are acting under mania, it is not what you believe in or who you are as a person. And you make these decisions that are not in line with what you believe in, but also you either have horrible, regrettable shame afterwards, or you don't even remember it. Like there have been times where someone's told me I did something and I'm like, I have no recollection of that. For someone who also struggles with OCD, it's scary because then you obsess about the fact that you made this decision. And it's, you know, for someone like me, until the last year and a half, I never gave myself grace for anything. And I will pummel myself for mistakes I've made, even if I didn't mean to do it, or I was manic or one of those things. So, you know, the obsessive constant cycling of that thought or that shame or that regret is on the mania side. But then also, you know, a really super fun side effect of bipolar is having suicidal ideation. And then you have the ideation and then you obsess about the fact that you've had the ideation, or you obsess about like, why am I feeling this depressed? Why am I this down? And it takes twice, 3 times as long to get out of because you're obsessing about it. I mean, you know it just from dealing with OCD, but like the same thought that someone would spend 2 minutes on, we'll spend 2 months on.
Oh yeah.
And then you add in the fact that I'm also experiencing these extreme highs and these extreme lows. It's a lot, you know?
It sounds like the catalyst of bipolar kind of bringing you to a point. Whereas somebody who doesn't have OCD and just bipolar, they have the action and they may not be as keen to, or like as reflective to reflect on it.
Yeah.
Or even like get really in the nitty gritty of what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like a chicken or the egg thing. Like, I don't know if it's like the intrusive thought from OCD that triggers something bipolar, or if it's something that's like I'm having like a manic episode or a depressive episode that I then obsess about. But I tend to be a very self-reflective person, as most people are with OCD, and therefore I tend to be extremely, extremely hard on myself. And I've only learned recently to start giving myself that grace. But again, I'm obsessing about like the way I'm already feeling bad. I'm already feeling bad, and then I'm obsessing about feeling bad, or the thoughts that go behind feeling that way. So
well, actually, first, can you walk me through like what suicidal ideation is for some people who don't know what that is?
It's the desire, to not be here anymore. It's the planning in your head of not being here anymore, and it's the and that's again where kind of like the obsession part comes in. It's actually I was talking to somebody about suicidal ideation, and actually learned something that I didn't know. But it's like the people apparently, like if you have really bad suicidal ideation, you always have like a specific way, like you always know. And then there are people who have like maybe like the passing thought or whatever. I think everybody, well, not maybe everybody, but there's like, that's a thought that happens, and
Sure.
There's no like distinct way. But for me, I always know what the way is, you know what I mean? And for a long time, it felt more like, again, it's a side effect of being bipolar. It's something I've dealt with a lot in my life, but for a long time, it felt more like an intrusive thought, like something that I thought about and I was like, oh, I don't want to think about that. And then I kept thinking about it. Whereas, in recent history, last year, I mean, I've been very open about it. Last year, I came the closest I've ever been to taking my own life. And it wasn't an intrusive thought anymore. It was every day, constantly. And there's peace on the other side of that. It's the first time I've ever had that thought and not been afraid of it, which is the thing that scared me the most about having them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because with OCD, it's people who are having thoughts that they are afraid of. They usually go against their values.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, to me, it almost sounds like suicidal ideation would be like for it, and intrusive thought would be against it. And I feel like you're in the middle.
I for a long time I was in the middle. Last year I wouldn't consider myself in the middle. Last year I was like an inch away from it. Like it was really close. And it took like you and the rest of my friends and my family and like learning how to have that conversation. Because that's the other thing is, as much as mental health is discussed now and as much as the stigmas kind of are being reduced, it's the understanding still isn't there. Like I think the stigma is heavily reduced, but the understanding isn't. And so like there's so many people who are there for me, but like don't try to understand it, or I know what that feels like too, but for the first time, because it got that real, I was like, I have to learn how to talk about this. And I never told anybody. I used to tell one person, that was it, and I just never felt like I could tell anybody. And last year I told everybody, like all my friends, my family, like everybody knows. And it is like a liberating feeling too. I say it all the time. I say, I feel like I'm the most me I've ever been in my life, because I'm not hiding that part of me anymore. And that was like such a dirty little secret of mine. Man, I'll never wash away the look in my mom's eyes when I told her that. But it also provided such a deep understanding from her and from like my friends and my family, because that's such a big part of me that I was hiding. And it was, again, last year was the first time it was constant. It was every day for like 4.5 months. I had to talk myself out of this. So it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes things have to get really bad so you can get the tools. And it's weird to almost be grateful for that period in my life, because now I understand that I have to discuss it, but I also know how to, and that it's not this thing where like I'm going to say it and people are going to put me in fucking jail for talking. You know what I mean? It's like it's such a, I don't know.
I get it. What's the hardest part, or like, let me rephrase this. What's the scariest part for you about telling someone those kind of thoughts?
I think the scariest part for me is the fact that I know that 99% of the people that I will say that to have absolutely no idea not only what that's like, but what to do with that information. And I only started doing it, like only started having that conversation because I was in a coffee shop with, Jesse. And I was sitting there with Jesse and we were talking about something, and like, I felt like my brain was leaking out behind my eyes. I was like, I have nothing to offer this conversation. I am just not, I need to talk about this. And it like burst out of me, and I told him. And he looked at me, and it was such a life-changing experience. Jesse's been, one of my best friends for 16 years at this point. And he looked at me, and he just like was so calm and just said, I'll never know what it's like to live with what you have to live with and deal with that kind of stuff in your brain. But I'm so grateful you told me, because it allows me to better be there for you and understand you as my friend. And it was like, holy shit. It was like a bubble popped in me. And then I was like, I'll fucking tell anybody. Like, this feels great to be able to be honest about it. And I remember too, I like called you and I told you about it. And your response was like, I love you, and obviously I'm concerned about how you're feeling, but because you're telling me about it, I'm not as worried about you, because I know, like, I feel like you talking to me about it, I know where you're at, and I can, help you. You know what I mean? That it just opened up a lot for me, for sure. So I guess, until I had that conversation, I was just like, who's going to understand this? How is it even going to help me to talk about it? Because people are going to be like, what do I do? But that was no one's response. It was honestly absolutely liberating to be able to just be fucking honest for once, Yeah.
I remember when you called me and I was like pacing around my apartment and you told me what Jesse said, and then reading the book and rereading the words that he did say to you. It just like imprinted on my brain that the fear of opening up and the what ifs that will come out of that are they are so not part of the way things usually would go with someone who cares about you.
Yeah.
And I think we have a misconception in our brains where it's like, if somebody doesn't understand it, because in our lives, when someone doesn't understand you, you've been met with this like closed down feeling, and I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to put myself out there again. And then you meet people who are in love with you, and they do meet you where you are, regardless of whether they understand it or not. And you're like, oh, this is the right move. This is what I'm supposed to do. And this feels great.
Well, the other thing about it too, is I feel like as people like you and I who struggle with OCD or bipolar or whatever, we are like, it's this subconscious feeling that like, we know that what we're thinking about is not normal. Like, this is not the normal way of feeling or you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, how do I approach a person I see as normal? You know what I mean? And get them to understand, And
I can tell you from experience, because I've never had suicidal ideation. I've had suicidal intrusive thoughts, but I was always afraid of them because I knew I never wanted to do it. Like, I never planned it out, never went to that level. They were just thoughts that really bothered me because I was like, I don't want to think about it because I don't want that.
Yeah.
But even listening to you talk to me about it, it's like I could still connect to you on some level, because I'm like, I know what it's like to be terrified of yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when you don't understand that they're intrusive thoughts, you think you think that's you, and you think you want it.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's coming at it from an angle of suicidal ideation, and you're having these thoughts that are coming from you and that you want it, it almost feels like this. It seems like it almost feels like the same thing as having thoughts that you don't want, but you think you want.
Yeah.
So I felt like I could connect to you on some level with that, where I could look at it and say, okay, well, this doesn't have to feel like a dark secret. This doesn't have to feel like something that you should be scared of, because let's attack it like we would an intrusive thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of just looking at it and saying, well, oh no, like we need to like get you fixed and like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that would make it worse.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. And I thought that like everybody in my life who I talked to about it, you and Jesse and, everybody was so helpful, in trying to help me figure that out and trying to help me navigate it. And, it wasn't pretty by any means. Like for a while I had to start, attaching reasons to it. And like for the longest time, like again, when I felt like it was more an intrusive thought, it was like, I just don't want to do that. Like I wouldn't do that. And it became this thing where I was like, oh, I can't do that because of this. Like it was as simple as like two of my best friends got married last year, Karina and Steven, both incredible human beings, both very helpful to me in this journey. And I even told her, I was like, I literally told myself I couldn't do it because it would ruin your wedding. Like, you know what I mean?
I remember you said that.
Yeah. Or like, I don't want to do that to my nephews, or, I had to attach these like tangible things to it because like the just lack of desire to do it wasn't there anymore. It was like, man, that seems like the right move. Like that seems like the one thing that'll stop me feeling this way. You know what I mean? And so it's, it wasn't pretty by any means, like definitely wasn't pretty, but, for a long time it started being that, and I had to do that just to get over the hump. And then I get over the hump a little bit and it becomes a little bit easier to manage. And, me having all these conversations with you guys, I didn't start having those conversations until like probably like a month and a half into me feeling the way I was feeling. And then I was having them with everybody in my life. Like it was important to me because I felt like there was this, accidental stigma placed on me by the people in my life. And it's like, obviously not their fault, but like my sister even said to me at one point, she was like, I genuinely forget you struggle because you've always just handled it. And it was like one of those things where I was like, I don't want to just fucking handle it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's not helpful anymore. And like, I don't want to act like it's not happening because that's not fucking helpful. And so, me being able to have those conversations too, I knew it was scary, and I knew that like nobody I was talking to was happy to have that conversation with me or happy to hear me talk about those things. I know they were happy to know me better and like happy that I was talking about it. But for me, it was like, I want everybody in my life to truly understand me. And it took me until last year to feel that way. I never felt, entirely understood, because it was one of those things where, I might be obsessing about this like depressive state that I'm in and trying to figure it out and trying to pick it apart and get all the answers. And people in my life just think I'm being apathetic or that I don't give a shit. And it's like, no, I can't get out of fucking bed today. The fact that I even showed up here is a monumental effort on my end. And, I don't blame them because I wasn't talking about it. I didn't know how to get myself out of that state. So for me now, I've become so protective of my peace and, never wanting to get to that state again where I was like as bad as I was last year, that I want to have the conversation with anybody because I want them to understand me and know that like, a lot of the times when I'm in a state like that or I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, I don't want to be, like you said, like, I don't want to have those thoughts. I don't want to feel like this, but I do. And I have to honor it in some way. Like I can't just ignore it, you know? So
absolutely. I think it takes courage, but it also takes knowing yourself to a substantial degree. So I guess my question would be, one, do you trust yourself? And if you do, what are some practical things that you use in your life to help better understand and trust yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely trust myself more. I think it would be naive of me to be like, yeah, every thought that comes into my head, I'm good. Like it's, you know,
Sure.
But no, I definitely trust myself more because I am so open and honest about everything now. And I honor what I feel instead of trying to like push it away or try to like move on from it. You know what I mean? I don't want to just sit here and act like everything's fine anymore because it's not. So, you know, for me, it's more so about like letting myself feel shitty sometimes. Like there are certain times where you know me, I never stop. I'm like doing 1,000 things at once all the time. And for a long time, that was my coping was like, oh, I'll just write 15 more songs. I'll hang out with 100 of my friends and I'll, you know what I mean? It's like, no, now sometimes I want to watch Perks of Being a Wallflower 40. I think I watched it 30 times last year. Like that's my comfort movie.
I remember.
I think I watched it 30 times last year. And I want to just do that and like light a candle and be in my bed and just like sit with it. So that's one thing. I do an extensive amount of therapy homework and journaling every day. So to me, it's like, it feels like an oil change. You know what I mean? It's like routine maintenance, even when I am doing well. So, obviously you and I are both mentors with Superpower Mentors. And that this is something that one of my kids and I, like, we work a lot on. I've kind of pushed on him. One is affirmations. I just say, like, I have a list of things that I truly believe to be true about myself, that I really like about myself. And I say them every day. Yes. And that list started so small because I didn't like anything about myself. And then as more and more time went on, I added to the list and I added to the list. And I tell anybody that I push that on is like, don't write anything you don't believe.
Ooh,
you know what I mean? Because it's like then it's like fake it till you make it type shit. And it's like, I don't believe in that with this. So it's like, even if the paragraph is this long and there's like 5 things you really love about yourself, but you truly do, say that over and over and over and over again every day. And then eventually you'll start to notice more things as you're healing, and you'll add to the list and add to the list. It's like a freaking 3-paragraph thing about myself now that I really like.
But
the journaling stuff, I have 3 different journaling exercises I do. 2 are earlier in the day. One of them is just my favorite one. It's my therapist taught me this one. It's how do I feel emotionally and how do I feel physically and how do I respond to both? So like every day I'll wake up and I'll be like, okay, I feel anxious about this. And, you know, I feel tired because, you know, obviously I'm so anxious that it makes me tired. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, so how do I respond to that? So, you know, this morning I woke up and I was feeling anxious and I was like, stay present, enjoy your day, have fun with Ty, you know, enjoy the conversation, you know, be around your friends, and same with feeling physically, like stay present, relax, rest, you know? So that's the big one that I do. I also have a gratitude journal where I write about like one person or one thing every day. And for a while, I kept trying to write about something different or someone different every day. And at a certain point, you do it for a year, you run out of shit to write about. And so I just write about, like, I've written about you probably 37 times in there. But like,
I've never read it.
Yeah, well, you won't. But it's like, you know, it's like, I'm grateful for people and things for different reasons too. Like, you know, I might write about you and be like, I'm grateful for the conversation we had the other day and how it made me feel. And then I might write about like, I'm grateful that I get to create with Tyler and that we've made all this great music together. And so like, that's another thing where I've allowed myself to just, it doesn't have to be something different every time. It just like, what is making me feel gratitude today, which makes me stay present. And then my sister got me one for Christmas like a year and a half ago, and I love it. I'm really starting to reap the benefits of it. It's called One Line a Day. I told you about it.
I remember that.
And it's you just like write about your day or whatever in it, but it has it has the date at the top, like the month and the day, and then there's 5 different sections for 5 straight years. So like you go to that day, and it's because we just turned into 2024, this is the first time I'm seeing where I was at last year. And it's so rewarding because I was fucked last year. And it was like, I'm reading it in this journal. It's like, he watched Perks of Being a Wallflower again. He watched Perks of Being a Wallflower again. He's fucking eating ice cream in his, he's like, you know what I mean?
My
Like,
gosh.
and it's, for me, it's really rewarding because I'm now starting to, look at this just like massive leap I've made in a year.
Which helps you trust yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it only and that's the other thing with the feeling emotionally and feeling physically. It's like every day when you write it, it might feel like the change is so incremental, but then I look at where I was a year ago or 6 months ago, where like, the changes start to take more shape. And so, yeah, it's a lot of journaling, but a lot of things that kind of force me to stop catastrophizing or thinking big picture or like, how is this going to end or what's the answer to this? It's like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I need to get through the day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm going on a rant here now, but
yes, we have editing tools.
True. I had a really rewarding conversation at a time when I really needed it. It was like a week or two before Christmas. No, it was the week of Christmas, and I was having like, I was just like not in a good spot. And I was like being really hard on myself and like kind of feeling super down. And I got a random phone call from my friend LaRue. He's one of Mason's friends. Oh, yeah. And him and I are like, we're boys, but like we have hung out like a couple times. Like we don't text all the time. He likes the music we make. So like him and I have, we're friends, but like he just called me. And we had this like hour-long conversation in which he was so... Dude, it was like everything I needed to hear. And he was just like telling me how he's a super religious or spiritual guy. And he told me that when he listens to like the songs, that like it makes him feel the same way as he does when he reads scripture, and that like my vulnerability allows him to feel kind of vulnerable or whatever. And it meant so much to me. And
that's incredible.
Yeah. And we had this conversation about like, what do you need to get through the day? Like stop thinking big picture type stuff. And he was like talking to me about, again, he's a spiritual guy. And he was talking to me about like the Lord's Prayer. Mm-hmm. And, he said like, give us this day our daily bread. And that's been like tattooed in my brain. It's because to me, like I'm not the most religious man.
Sure. Neither am I. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But like I like to believe in, something more. Yeah. And for when he said that to me, like I got so obsessed with the idea of daily bread. It's like, what do I need that is the sustenance just for today to get through the day? You know what I mean? Like, just give me that. That's all I need. I don't need the G-Wagon. I want the G-Wagon, but I don't need the G-Wagon. I don't need the big house in the hills. Like, what do I need today to make sure that Nick is like fulfilled and happy? And when you take it from such a big picture thing, like, you and I are both have OCD and are just creative people. So we always think big picture. It's like, well, what do I need on, I don't know what today's date is.
The 29th.
What do I need on January 29th, 2024 to get through the end of the day feeling happy and fulfilled with the day? And that's a big thing for me too. So for me, it's really about staying present.
I love that.
And that was the longest fucking answer of all time.
That's fine. That's fine.
You got to start telling me to shut up.
Listen, man, this is totally fine. I like this because I told you I'd like to get a good 45 minutes to an hour out of it, and I think we've been doing this for like a half hour, so like we got some good time.
I'm judging by the fact that my left ass cheek feels a little numb, so I'm gonna adjust my I'm adjusting a little bit.
We do not condone cheek numbness here at Please Excuse My OCD, but
there's a lot of cheek numbness going on.
A lot of cheek numbness, yeah.
Built like a fucking praying mantis, so
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just funny.
You're imagining like me like tickling like what do they do? They rub their wings together. Or
I don't know. They'd pray. It's just I don't know if they
very
actually
spiritual
pray,
bugs.
Very spiritual. I was gonna go somewhere with that. My ADD brain is just fumbling.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I feel like because you only have the day.
Yeah.
That's all you have. You only have now, right? And it's weird because our minds go to this place where there is no now, it's later or it's before. And especially with OCD, I feel like most of our minds are in later.
Yeah, we want to know all the fucking answers.
Yeah, and like everybody wants to know the answers, but like with OCD, it's like I want to know the answers with steroids.
Yeah.
And most of the time there are no answers, even when you think there are. Even when you think you have all the control, you think that, you know everything you can know about this health issue or whatever the case is. My question would be, like, how do you deal with the unknown? Like, how do you deal with not having answers?
I call you.
This is true. This is very true.
No, dude, like, honestly, I struggle with that still, you know what I mean? And I still go to that place where I'm like, I don't fucking get it. I don't understand why this is happening. I don't know why, like, I feel the way I do. And, you know, I mean, we've been talking about this recently where I'm like kind of being faced with a bunch of shit that like is seemingly being put in front of me where I'm trying to figure out what the answer is to it. And, yeah, it's exhausting. And I still have those moments, you know what I mean? There was like a good couple week period recently where I was like just cycling again. And I felt myself like going back to that place, not like the ideation place I did last year, but like, you were on the other end of 1,000 phone calls where like I was just obsessing and cycling and what the fuck does this mean? And why is this happening? And I was doing that again. And, it's interesting. I just went to, one of my best friends, Kentora, I went to her 30th birthday, and I just like had a really good time. And like that day I was like cycling. And I just had a really good time while I was there. And it made me kind of just like take a deep breath and remember that there's other shit outside of what I'm obsessing about. You know what I mean? That was huge for me because up until that moment, I was like,
yeah.
Constantly. And then like I went to that party and I had so much fun and I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm okay. Like, and so I don't know, like sometimes I still don't know, you know what I mean? I sometimes it's helpful for me to talk about it. Sometimes it's not. And you and I talk about that a lot too. It's like, you talk about it to a certain extent with the people you love in your life and try to figure out like, am I obsessing or is this is this what I'm actually thinking it is? You know what I mean?
Does this have some validity?
Yeah. And there's an extent to which it's helpful to talk about. And then there's an extent to where you're just exhausted from talking about it. So it's, it kind of depends. But for me, again, in like a subconscious way, my thing was I went to this party, I had a great time. And it was because I was present and I wasn't obsessing about this other stuff and I wasn't thinking about this other stuff. So it was like, how do I find ways to be present? So I've been reading a lot again. I'm on my 3rd book of the year. I'm crushing it. So I'm like,
fuck yeah,
I'm loving it. So I've been reading a lot, which helps me stay present because I'm immersing myself in a different world besides the one that's in my head. I've been writing a lot. As you know, your inbox has been super annoying from me, just sending songs and shit.
I gotta read those emails.
I've been watching The Sopranos. Just like, for me, I think I've just started to figure out like things that I enjoy doing that aren't necessarily about like an end game or, a big picture thing or like purposefully distracting myself, if that makes sense. Like I read because I want to read and it helps me to distract myself from whatever's going on. Or like I'll hang out with friends because I want to hang out with my friends and not because oh my God, I got to get out of my head. You know what I mean? So it's like,
it's a want. It's a want, but it also does kind of
satisfy a need.
Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to find, and lately have been pretty successful in finding ways to just stay present, in my day to day. But again, there's always going to be those times in which I'm not able to do that. And it just takes me a little time to get there. So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is when you talk about presence, and I look at that as like two sides of the same token with presence and acceptance. So I think it's really hard for you to be present without acceptance.
Yeah.
So even if you're not like sitting there being like, okay, I accept this thought, or I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to let it be what it is. Because that's like one way that I like to deal with mine. Because I know that if I look for answers, that's a compulsion. Right? Yeah. So sometimes just being present, doing what you're doing is, to me, it's another form of acceptance.
Well, it also, like, to your point, like, it is a compulsion, but it's also like, if you are seeking the answer, are you going to get the answer you want anyway? And then you're going to go obsess about that. So it's like,
right.
For me, being present allows me to just like relax and be okay with my day to day and have that daily bread like we talked about. But it also allows me to just kind of be like, instead of me seeking the answer, why don't I let the answer present itself? And for me, like, that's, kind of where I've been at lately, where, I was looking for the answers in a bunch of things, and then it just wasn't helpful. It was, destroying me. I was, constantly, my brain was like a freaking rabbit or a hamster on a wheel, and it just would not stop going. And I was like, again, me being at that party, I was able to, drink 1,000 club sodas and listen to mid 2000s hip hop and like just have a great time. And it just allowed me, again, that acceptance of just being like, I don't know what the answer is. And, I'm not saying that I won't need it at some point, but like right now I should just relax and like take care of myself and allow the answer to just present itself when it needs to be presented.
I like that.
Because, it's like, sometimes those thoughts too are like marinating meat.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if you try to pull the meat out of the bag too quick, it's not going to taste like anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, when is this thought ready for me to actually get the answer for it?
Right. That's actually, I never thought about it like that. That's pretty interesting.
I haven't either. It just
came to you.
I'm fucking brilliant. Just talking about meat
in bags.
Yeah. Sorry to my vegan homies.
There are certain things about the way I work and about the way that I care for people and the way that I live my life that I feel like would not be the case if I didn't think the way I do.
Sure.
If I didn't obsess over things the way I do. With my OCD, would you say that like the bipolar that you have struggled with your whole life, your OCD, like, do they play a part in your creative process as an artist?
Oh, certainly. Man. Yeah, I mean, the OCD side, like, me, I'm a remarkably organized, like, I have the next year and a half of my musical life planned out, and I just sorry to you. But yeah, like, I think I'm remarkably organized. I think that, I think maybe my OCD made me a better songwriter because I see songwriting as like formulaic at this point. Like, I have a formula in my head for like what I need to do. And so maybe because I'm so obsessive like that, or I do have that like formulaic mindset to it, it's made me so much more efficient. Like, when you and I started working together, I had been using instrumentals from other producers and stuff. And I the pandemic happened and shit hit the fan or whatever, and I had to start writing everything myself again. And it like, I think you've seen, even over the last few years we've been working together, how much more I trust myself now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like, I brought to you 5 songs that took me forever. You know what I mean? Because I was like learning to trust myself again. And then now I'm like, yo, here's the next 20. You like, what do you think? You know what I mean?
Very true. Yes.
So I think from an OCD standpoint, like, that's for sure, that's part of it. And also, like you said too, like the way you care for people, like I think my OCD makes me like want to make sure everyone's okay and try to check in on everybody and like be fucking annoying and sappy to my friends. You know what I mean?
We love it.
But the bipolar side, for sure, I think the bipolar side has made me more patient. I think I was more patient. Bipolar side's made me more patient with people, I think. and more understanding with people. I'm still very fucking impatient when it comes to like, I want to get this done. I want to do it. I want to do it, because the OCD side kicks in. But the only reason I write at all is because of my bipolar. Like my mom, I say it all the time. Like my mom handed me a notebook when I was like 10 and was like, you can write whatever you want in here. Nobody else has to see it. It's just for you. And I could write fuck 1,000 times on the page and not get grounded for yelling it, or, you know what I mean? It was like, I couldn't get in trouble for taking what was in my head and putting it on paper. And, you know, that was like the dawn of it. Right. And that's why I always wrote. That's why I wanted, you know, once I found music and started playing guitar, it's like why I wanted to be a songwriter. I liked taking this storm in my head and making something beautiful from it. And it took me a long time to make anything beautiful from it, because, you know, when you start, you suck.
Yeah.
And like,
you got to get the suck out.
It was funny, you know, Jesse has played drums in basically everything I've ever done. So like him and I have been playing music together since we were 16, and we had this record that came out like right around the time we graduated high school that, like, you know, kids from our local area really liked, and it was a fun record. And I went back and I listened to it last year, and I said, dude, know what's crazy about that record? And he was like, what? I was like, I don't know what any of those fucking songs about. I have no idea. Like, I don't know what the fuck I was writing about. There were just like words that sounded cool next to each other.
Sure.
But, you know,
that's pretty much all pop music is today.
Basically.
Yeah.
But I think that that's why, like, not to toot my own horn, but I think that people, you know, people who really like my music and the things that I do really speak about, like, my lyrics. Like, like my lyricism is, I think, you know, even my uncle was like, oh, everyone like makes music or whatever, but your words are what set you apart. I think that I've tried to find really elegant ways of getting out of my own fucking head. And it's like, now it's interesting. I feel like I am catching up to my songwriting now. Cause, you know, I think I've told you before, I think sometimes my pen gets places before my brain does. Like I wrote that song Back to Bed that came out last year. I wrote it the year before. It's the most miserable fucking song ever. I love it, but it's I was not in a good place at all. And I think you were the only person I showed that song to. I remember
that. Yeah.
There's a contingent of people. I'll send demos to friends or like my family, and like the girl I was dating at the time, like I showed her everything, and I did not I never showed her that song because I like subconsciously knew it was fucking terrifying. You know what I mean? That song is rough. It's a rough song. I love it so much, and like every time I hear it in my voice. Like it's like desperate, like the desperation in my voice. I love that song.
It is an incredible song. If you haven't heard Back to Bed, get out of bed and listen to Back to Bed.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. I think gratefully now, I feel like me as a person, I'm understanding that I think I'm catching up to my pen for the first time. Like instead of like my pen always getting places before me and then I have to catch up, like now I feel like I'm writing about what I'm feeling right now. And like writing about what I'm feeling and being able to talk about it outside of a sonic format, you know?
Because you're knowing yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, you know, you spend so long trying to just deal with shit and get over it like you're told to. And you know, oh, you always just get over it. That's just the way you've always handled it, right? You spend so long getting to that you don't understand how to get over shit anymore. Like it stops being possible. So like I spent months and months and months like just bottom of the barrel, like barely getting out of bed and just like putting a smile on and going about my day. But when I would sit down and try to figure it out or go to therapy about it, it wasn't ever that I wasn't trying to get better, as I had no fucking idea how to do it anymore. I kept expecting it to just like finally be fine, you know, like finally like something's going to happen and I'll be good, like, or this will happen and I'll be fine. And it's like, no, I don't have the tools anymore. So that was a big part of it too. Now I've become more in sync with myself and understanding, you know, the things that I actually need to talk about and need to do to be okay, and not just expecting myself to deal with it or get better, you know.
I was going to ask you something and I totally lost what I was going to ask you, but I guess I'll go back and say, I don't know. This would be a good topic. Dating with the way your brain works.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that, like, for myself growing up, because I was such a thinker and because I always felt like I needed certain things, and I feel like everybody kind of does have certain needs to a certain extent when it comes to romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel like because your brain works a certain way that it's harder to date in an already hard landscape of dating?
I don't know that I would say it's harder to date. I'd say that I'm harder on myself dating. If that does that make sense?
100%.
I think that so many of the things that we discuss with me not showing back to bed to her or whatever, it's like there's so much of it that's just like I don't trust myself, or I didn't for a long time. I didn't trust myself, and I was so like literally horrible to myself. Like that's like people have literally said that about me, that I am horrible to myself, and in the process I never knew how to show up for myself for a long time, so like I guess like it kind of depends. Like if I'm dating somebody and I'm in a good place, it's fucking great, I'm fine, like I'm chilling, everything's fine, everything's cool. I don't deal with a lot of things like, I think when I'm dating people, like I don't think I ever really worry about like jealousy or like trust like that, because my mistrust isn't with them, it's with me.
Yeah.
So not like I don't ever have an issue trusting people. I do, and I have had an issue with trusting myself. So, if I get myself to that place where I'm not doing well, I'm trying so hard to find the answer. Like we talk about all the time with OCD, like you need to have the answer. And for me, it's like, I know it's not this person that makes me feel this way. So why do I feel this way? What do I need to do? And it's like, you spend so long just trying to like, it's, I'll liken it to like a tug of war, but I'm in the middle. So one side of me is being pulled by like, I'm not doing well, and I'm trying desperately to figure it out, and I can't, and I don't know how to understand it or fix it. And the other side's pulled by like, I don't want to let on too much because I don't want this person to be upset or anxious or think it has anything to do with them, because I know it doesn't. Mm-hmm. And so all of that gets kind of, that's why I got pulled in two different directions, and I was exhausted constantly because I was like, I'm not doing well. I don't know what it is. I know it's not her. What the fuck why am I feeling this way? And now, like we've talked about, like me being able to trust myself and me being understanding, and also learning to speak about the really dark shit. Like I've always kind of been able to talk about how I feel, but like the dark shit of being like, word, I don't want to be here. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to, like I want to close my eyes forever. You know what I mean? Learning how to have those conversations has would have taken care of all of that. You know what I mean? Because I would have been able to look this person in the eyes and be like, this is what's happening.
Yes.
I don't know why. I'm trying really hard. I need help. But I'm always the dude who has to get over everything, or not get over everything, but I'm the dude who just like can always take care of it and handle it. Like I said, even my family was like, we forget sometimes that you struggle because you just deal with it. And so because that's the expectation I put on myself. And so I needed fucking help, like bad. And obviously you were a big part of that.
Thank you. I don't really think so, but
thank you, dude. I'd be in a goddamn box if it weren't for you. But
no, we don't like boxes.
No, not at all. It's a long ass fucking box too. I'm lanky as shit. But like it's.
Sorry, I don't. Like, it's just,
that's such a morbid joke for me to make, but I had to do it.
This is how it is. There is a stigma. There is a stigma with men and mental illness and opening up.
The thing is, though, I don't even know that it was a thing that I put on myself, feeling like because I'm a male. I don't think it was that. I just like have, since I got out of the hospital, aside from like my mania and learning how to control that, like for the most part, everyone just sees me as like, oh, Nick's happy. He's doing fine. Like, you know what I mean? I have been able to kind of get through things even when they were hard. And like, but it got so hard last year or the year before, the last few years have been so hard for me that I stopped being able to get through it. I needed new tools. I needed different medication. It was the first time I changed my meds since I was 13. I needed help so bad. And now that I understand how to talk about it and like what I need to talk about, again, I say I'm the most me I've ever been because everybody knows me. If I had those skills and understanding, and again, like, I guess sometimes life hands you shit to help you get to that point. And I wish it didn't take this to get to that point. But like, if I had that understanding 2 years ago, we're having a completely different conversation right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's been, I've never really subscribed to like, you gotta be 100. And I've talked about this. You gotta be 100% good before you start dating somebody.
Yeah,
I don't
fuck
subscribe to that, but I do think you need to know yourself. I think you need to know, have the tools to deal with the things you need to deal with. I think you need to, have a really good idea of who you are as a person. And, I thought I did, but I didn't. I had no fucking idea who I was because everything that I thought I was rooted in the songs I made and if people liked them.
Yep.
That's the only
sense.
part of me that I ever fucking liked until last year. It took me my entire life to actually appreciate who I am as a person. So
Feel that.
I think with dating, like you said, it's one of those things where I think it's probably different for me now, but then it was really hard because I just was obsessing over and over again about why do I feel this way when I know it's not her. And it's tough, but
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and again, I think that you and I have a lot of conversations about it, and I think it really is just about, you don't need to have it all figured out, but you need to know who you are and like the things you need.
Yeah.
So.
I think, and that's something I always used to hear growing up is like, you can't love someone else unless you love yourself. And I'm like, Janet, does anybody love themselves fully? Like, let's be real here.
Fuck is Janet, bro?
I don't know who Janet is, but like, you can picture Janet,
Sure.
and it's always
picturing like a very bowl like bob haircut.
So like Karen.
Yeah, like a helmet.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, like a
definitely
helmet of hair.
Like just that in itself, is a lot of pressure to say, hey, I really got to love myself. Like, you can't pressure yourself into loving yourself. Like,
No, but I think you can understand how to prioritize it. You know what I mean? And I think that comes from, again, what we just discussed. Like, you don't need to love every part of yourself, but you need to know yourself at least and be able to, like, and that's, again, like, now that I know myself and I have all those tools, like, my communication is very different. Like, I have such a high level of communication. I had a decent level of communication before, but like, now that I know myself and I understand all these things about myself and how I need to talk about it, my communication level is ridiculous now. Like, ridiculous.
He's got the Riz.
Ridiculous.
13 was a very pivotal year for you.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that there's so much that you would be able to give to him. I
guess first, like, you may feel extremely isolated and understood in this moment, but your future holds a remarkable amount of incredible people who truly love you and are there for you, and you have built a network of truly, truly wonderful and kind human beings that you call family and friends. I think that's number one. But the future just holds so much love for him. Oh man. I guess the second thing I would tell him is that, like, just, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. I think that if I could go back in time, I would try to teach myself how to be kinder to myself earlier. I think I would try to instill a lot of the tools I have in him now to save him a lot of hurt and heartbreak and shame and regret, and just teach that young version of him, or that young version of me, to move forward in the world with kindness towards himself, and that like that I am deserving of all the love I tend to give away. I think that those are the two things that like the future holds a lot of love from a lot of wonderful people, and that I am deserving of it.
Ooh.
Because that's a big thing. I never thought I deserved anything from anybody ever. And now I do. I feel like I really deserve the people who I have in my life, and the people who have kept close and been on the other end of those phone calls. I know that I finally understand that the people who I love don't stay in my life if I'm not worthy of it. You know, I think too, you and I had a lot of conversations around the dawn of this like really, really difficult time for me, where I was like calling my friends crying and being like, I'm so sorry if I've ever made you feel like I wasn't there for you or whatever. And everybody was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And like, that's what was kind of the catalyst for me making all these changes in my life and being kinder to myself. Was I cried for days, weeks, months, like seeing and hearing what the people in my life truly view me as and see me as, and then seeing how I view myself and how vastly fucking different those two things were, and realizing that I am who my loved ones see and not who I tell myself I am.
Well, that's a realization.
Yeah.
Damn. You are who your loved ones see you as.
Yeah.
Not who you say you are.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. That's like, I heard a quote that was so similar.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like the people who know you the most are the ones who are able to tell you.
Well, it's honestly interesting you bring that up too. And this is something I talked to you about too, that my mom instilled in me. My mom is so purposeful about being like, you are not bipolar, you are not obsessive compulsive, you have bipolar and you have obsessive compulsive disorder. That is not who you are. And it was she used to be a part of a bunch of like support groups when I was a kid, of like moms with kids with mental illness. And she would say that to everybody, because it's like, that's not who you are. It's just something you deal with. It's something you manage. And you know, it kind of ties into that, like, oh no, like I am the person I tell myself I am is like the shittiest, fucking most awful. I deserve nothing. I suck. I'm like a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, and that I feel like kind of in a similar way kind of ties into what my mom said, is like, no, that's not who you are. That's who you tell yourself you are. You are not this thing. You just deal with it.
I love that.
You have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really introspective.
Dude, shout out fucking Kelly with the bars, dude.
Kelly with the bars.
Kelly's got bars.
Wow.
She's the best, dude.
I'm stoked that you were able to... Well, I know that this was a twofer. I know you had some things to do today here in Little Rhodey, but you were able to come down here and do this with me. And do you have any of these left?
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to read about Nick's story more in depth, he put out I'm Not Supposed to Be Here probably like a month or two ago, right?
It's like a month ago,
yeah. So, and I'll put the link in the show notes where you can check out that.
Hey, thanks, dude.
But
don't read it at work like my mom did, because she fucking cried all day like an animal.
They should add, don't drink at work, don't smoke at work, don't read Nick's books at work.
Dude, when she told me she did that, I was like annoyed. I was like, why the fuck would you do that? So now anytime someone buys one from me, and like if it's like personally, like my buddy Marco, he was like, I want a book, and I handed it to him, and I was like, do not read this until you're ready. It's rough. And it's so now I have to give that disclaimer to everybody, because I don't need people fucking crying in the club like my mom. Like, I was like, dude, you know what it's about. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
This is a read it and then eat a tub of ice cream by yourself type situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't read this shit in public.
Yeah. Well, I do most of my reading in private.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a joke. I'm piggybacking off of that.
Yeah, that's a smart move.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on here, man. And you're one of my favorite people. I love you so much. And
I love you too, brother.
Thanks for talking OCD with me.
Yeah, man.
Here on Please Excuse My OCD. And, have a look out for the new music coming out.
Yeah, we got a bunch of it. And again, thank you for having me. I really think what you're doing is really awesome and important. And I've been looking forward to this for a long time. So I'm grateful to be here and just grateful to know you and be your friend. And like, it's still so weird to me that I've only known you for like 3.5 years because you're like one of my fucking favorite people ever. I love you to pieces. So
thanks, bro. Return the sentiment for sure.
Yeah. So a whole bunch of other stuff on the way, obviously, with you and I. There always is. But I'm excited to see you grow this platform because it's really fucking cool.
Thanks, brother. That's the whole purpose. I've told everybody before, it's about just keeping the lines of communication open, right? And anything that we do, and you've said that multiple times on this podcast already, is when you're able to open up, how much the world kind of opened up for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's exactly what this is. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. My mom says hi, by the way.
Hi, Mom.